Mark, who just started to the recording, and Brenda, and Steve, the turf guy, and Susan, who always then summarizes what she's seen in the chat from people's responses.
All kinds of things tonight. It was encouraging to read. Someone said they're good neighbors, the people that we meet when we're doing this work. 20 people showed up for the honk and wave in Lebanon, and that's pretty good turnout for Lebanon. The resolve of young people, the political races coming up where it looks like Democrats are looking strong to win. People now not taking democracy for granted. That's a big one, right? Because I think many of us did for a long time. Our ancestors, remembering the work that they did. Someone just read Joyce Vance's book, which, and I did as well, Giving Up is Unforgivable. I really highly recommend that book. It was an easy read, but lots of great ideas. Someone has a friend who voted for the first time at age 68. Several people talked about being out on the streets this past weekend, even though it was heavy. There were lots of other people out doing the same thing, and that always gives us hope. I had read that some of the Republicans voted yes on the 3-year extension for the ACA subsidies. I think that's a big deal. Avelo Airlines have stopped doing deportation flights, and both Republican and Democratic senators voted to put up the plaque honoring the officers who worked to control the January 6th insurrection. And that's a big deal because the plaque had been in the basement of the Capitol for all these years. So now it is on display.
Okay, so thank you, Susan. And I know we have, as always, we have new people as well as people for whom this is, the 450th Zoom with us. So we try to balance between the two. And so we will dive into slides. Mark, will you keep admitting people? Thank you. Um, So this was the prompt, and I'm showing you this because I it's a great article if you click on that link in your own time about we can be paralyzed by bad news we're fed every day, or we can work within our local communities and engage with people and actually do something. What you all are saying, and it is just a really good story about people who did that. So, our agenda, we are going to start new people. We ask you to bear with us. We love quotations and things well put. And we always start with some of those, and this is no exception. Although I think this time we have the oldest one we've ever read. So you'll see that coming up. Then we're going to talk, actually ask you, people who have recruited neighborhood leaders, to share some of your thoughts because we are looking to grow our numbers. It's how we win elections. And then we're going to talk about looking towards the primary. So you'll see that when we get to it. If we have time, we're going to ask for your input on planning the February launches. And if we don't, we will ask via email. So and then good of the order, what's coming up. Okay. So the thoughts.
Thoughts for the moment. The president and the vice president do not know the history of the people like themselves, or that of other republics that have been needlessly brought down by men of their particular sort. They think that the magic of words will always save them, that there will always be the next grift, that no crisis is so great that it cannot be turned into personal profit. This is true right up until the moment when it is not. The republic can break, but it need not. Those who work against the grifters, who reinforce the reality beyond the bubble, are doing right. They are not only holding back authoritarianism, but giving the republic a chance. They may be acting from love or from law because they know that these things are real. And so they should also know, in acting thus, that they are the patriots.
I think we can say that about the people on this Zoom as well.
I was just going to say, get her done, patriots.
Democrats need to present themselves not as the party of government, but rather as the party of reform, as disruptors of the status quo on behalf of the common good. We believe they must tell voters that in all sorts of ways, the economy, health and healthcare, disaster relief, Trump is making their lives worse, not better. He and his administration are amateurs, inept, and in over their heads. They are entertainers and grifters, shock jocks and freaks. Whatever talents they may possess, mastery of governing is not one of them. That's a quote from The Atlantic.
I call not upon a few, but upon all, not on this state or that state, but on every state. Up and help us. Lay your shoulders to the wheel. Better have too much force than too little when so great an object is at stake. Let it be told to the future world that in the depth of winter, when nothing but hope and virtue could survive, that the city and the country, alarmed at one common danger, came forth to meet and repulse it. Obviously, Thomas Paine Common Sense. That's our oldest quote.
And boy, could have been said yesterday. So this is the part where we're tapping into your experience. I think that no matter if this is your first or your, 100th Zoom, you know that we, through our work, dramatically increase voter turnout and voter engagement. So we're stopping sharing and asking people if you have recruited a neighborhood leader. And I'm going to throw in if you're a neighborhood leader who was recently recruited, what worked? To give us thoughts because we would love to see anyone who can bringing someone new along to the launch. Speak up. You can just unmute yourself and speak up. Oh, don't make us call on you. Joanna,
Hi, can you hear me okay?
I can.
Awesome. I'm Joanna. I'm the co-chair of the campaign committee, and one way I have recruited neighborhood leaders is actually as a first step in running for office. So it is a great way to become familiar with door knocking, which is a really big challenge for a lot of people. It's a great way to warm up with friendly doors. And that's how I pitch it to people that they want to run now or they have some interest in the future. And it's a nice way to just ease them into it.
That cool. So Caitlin,
So I'm new to the neighborhood leader program and I have not knocked on any doors yet. I have sent out a bunch of letters. Nobody replied to my letters, so I'm disappointed in that. And I'm trying to get some of my friends, my Bernie stock friends, to join the neighborhood leaders program or to get involved. I can say that getting involved in the DNC was a first step for me. I mean, I've always been a Democrat, but just getting involved there. And then Mark made some suggestions about ways I could get involved. And this seemed like one that was um, near and dear to my heart.
that is so cool. And you mean the county party?
Yes.
Okay. Don't be scared, people. She doesn't mean the Democratic National Committee. Um, and we always talk about letters in person. And Caitlin lives way out in the country. So, as we know, in some places, driving up the long driveways is just not as viable.
And I think that not getting responses right away to your letters is not uncommon.
Do you think that it warms up the people at all? Okay.
I think what we found is, that those of us who do it, it could be, people will say, it was the seventh time I knocked on the door and they opened it and we had a great conversation and they had gotten all the stuff I dropped off. So you can't, people have lives and it's just hard to know. Um,
Uh, I'd like to chime in on the letter writing. I have a lot of people that whose doors I cannot approach because of locked gates. So I started sending them letters to get out the vote. And I want to say it worked because before they weren't voting. And this last time, boy, when I sent out the letters, and I know who these people are now on my list. So I sent them out right away, first day. And I had like a 90% voting return when before only about 30% of them were voting. So I thought it worked.
okay, excellent. And
And nobody talked to me. They just voted, but that's all I needed.
okay, excellent. Sarah.
No, I don't know, it was last year or during the second, the midterms, but I sent out the postcards. And then when I got to people's doors, and I really, really actually dislike knocking on people's doors, but I do it. But it was nice to have them say, "Oh, you're the one that sent the postcard." So it was kind of, I don't know, it just made me feel better.
Good. Okay, refocusing now. And those are great stories. We love to hear people's experience. We're talking about recruiting. Um, yeah. And so I am going to call on somebody. And um, Heather, are you on? I'm not seeing, I saw you and then I didn't see you because I
Me?
know,
Heather Medina?
yeah, you've recruited a bunch of people.
Well, I don't know if they've done anything though, Nancy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yes, yes.
Okay. So I guess my personality is a blue. I'm like, woo, hey. So I just ask people. So my people, I think it was this summer, Janelle had a meeting and I had seen somebody that I used to work with through the Calapooya Watershed Council. And Nancy was there at the table. And she said this was her first meeting with Janelle, and she was interested to do more. I'm like, you want to do more? You got to meet Nancy. So I just took her over there. So I think most people just want to be asked. People just are not sure what to do, and once you kind of direct them, then most times they'll say yeah. Especially
Yeah.
new people new to Albany or the
And
area.
and something that we just have been talking about is people right now say, I want to do something, right? And we know when there are campaign offices, people can go volunteer at the office, but we only do that, after the primary and before the general election. And so this is something really specific. People can get a job and do it starting. So, everybody just think about if you know people who want to do something, this is something that we know has a remarkably high return.
That's what I say when I talk to people, and it can be because they're reaching out to the Dems and want something to do, or it can be just at one of the actions that we're doing, like at a honk and wave or at a protest. And people at this particular time, people are anxious. And I like to say, as Robert Hubble says all the time, the antidote to anxiety is action or to despair or to whatever you're feeling in response to all this stuff. And coupled with what Nancy said about the effectiveness, it's very attractive for people to at least look into. So don't be afraid to bring it up. Sometimes you don't, somebody who you don't suspect that might want to knock on doors and they've never knocked on doors suddenly feels like they can try it.
It's true. Okay, so at this moment, we want to encourage everybody to think, is there someone I could invite to the launch who might want to do this? We're going to have that social worker moment of silence. Okay, and the launch will be fun. If you haven't been there, it's more fun than looking at, what's the quiz game where they're just little boxes of people's faces? Yeah. Okay. So on if you have more thoughts, put them in the chat. We are moving on. So very briefly, this is our calendar coming up. This is our Zoom for January. The next thing we're going to do, barring an even more unforeseen event than we've seen in the past 2 weeks, our next thing we're going to do is the launches. And that's February 21st for people in Lynn County and North Albany, and February 22nd for people in Benton County, including North Albany. Then, starting the next week, March 1st, we're going to start every other Sunday Zooms at this time, same time, where we'll have 3 candidates per Zoom. And those are really useful. You get to meet the candidates, ask them questions, yada, yada, yada. And then towards the end of that, we will do a training on the database, the phone app, and looking at the materials that we have to when we go out to talk to our voters. April 29th is the day that ballots start getting mailed out. And so from then through May 19th, that's when we're active. And May 19th is the final date. So that is the simple from now to the primary calendar. So we're dividing the meat of this meeting into 2 parts. And the first is ballot basics. And again, we have a whole range of knowledge, and we on the teams are real election nerds. So we try not to assume that everybody dives into it as much as we do. If what's coming up is simple for you, great time to go get a snack, but we hope it'll be useful for a lot. Carrie?
There we go. Sorry. This is just a good graphical representation of all the kinds of positions that represent each of us at the state, federal, and local level. One thing that is not on here are the executive functions at those levels as well. So, things like, I think it doesn't have the governor or the mayor, for example, but those, because strictly speaking, they're not representatives as much as they are people who execute the policies from the Congress or the State House. But yes, you can kind of check this out and see the various positions that are in our counties and states and national representation. And you'll recognize that you have voted for these offices in the past, including things that don't come up that frequently, like the district attorney or the sheriffs. Things like judges that often I don't know about, but I wish I knew more. And then the positions where that tend to get the most attention for a lot of reason, like our state house representatives, state senators, our national senators and congressional representatives, city councils, county commissions, public schools, et cetera.
Thank you. So we will absorb this more easily as we speak to candidates, but Basically, this is who is going to be on our primary ballot as partisan offices, meaning only registered Democrats will vote for our Democratic candidates. So there's going to be one senator, that'll be Senator Merkley, who's 6 years or up. And every 2 years, we vote for all our congressional reps. So Val Hoyle and Janelle Bynum and whoever chooses to run against them will be on our primary ballot, our governor. And at this moment, there are 11 Republicans registered to run for governor and 5 Democrats, none of whom is our current governor yet. Our Bowley secretary is now coming up again for election. Some state senators are running. They have 4-year terms, so different ones every 2 years. As with the congressional representatives, all of our state representatives are elected every 2 years. Some county commissioners, I believe one in each county, Lynn and Benton, are going to be running, and all precinct committee people. So if you are or want to be a Democratic precinct committee person, and this is the link to be able to apply to be on the ballot. So when you go and talk to your voters, you can say, and please don't forget to vote for me. And you can say, I am at the very bottom of your ballot. So go all the way down your ballot and you'll find me. Oh, okay. Nonpartisan, meaning they'll be on everybody's ballot, would be state Supreme Appellate and Circuit Court judges, district attorneys, if our district attorneys are running, and then if various county officers, if they are elected, and it's different in Lynn and Benton, and if they're running. So that remains to be seen. We'll clue in on that a little bit later. And county and local ballot measures, if there are any. What's not on our primary ballot will be the city offices, because they're on the November ballot only. School board members and other educational boards, because we just voted for them a year ago, May. And state ballot initiatives, which will be on the November ballot. I think this is going to be a year when we have a ton of ballot initiatives. So that will be interesting. So, Susan.
So we'll talk briefly about what each of these offices do. It's important that we have some understanding of that, because when you ask a question of a candidate, you need to be sure that you're asking about something that the office that they're running for actually has something to do with, right? So this is just a kind of a broad view of what they do. The governor provides statewide leadership, drafts the state budget, coordinates with the agencies, and negotiates with the legislature. Kind of sets the tone for what's happening in the state. State agency leaders provide leadership and set policy for each of their agencies and manage agency personnel. So state agencies are like the Department of Transportation, the DMV, the Department of Education, and many others.
So, Susan, I'm just having worked in state government. I'm going to break in and say most state agency leaders are appointed by the governor, but a very few of them are elected.
Yes, right. State and federal senators and representatives are the ones who pass laws to implement policy. And county commissioners also make policy, administer the budget, the county budget, and oversee county agencies and operations. And all of the above represent and serve their constituencies' interests, or at least that's the theory, right? And in a functioning administration, many of these offices would provide the same kind of thing at the federal level. So governor would be closer to like president. We know that our government at the federal level is not necessarily functioning the way we would like it to at this point.
So that is the basics. And we're going to stop. And if anybody has a question. Okie doke. Good. That was all clear. There's going to be a quiz, so get ready. So this part is now what we're going to do is walk through briefly work we've already done. So, and that's for the benefit, well, refresh your recollection, and also for people who may be new. And where we're going is questions that we would like the candidates who appear before us to focus on. And so, sort of a group preparation for that. In the past, we've really left it open to candidates and said, talk about your priorities and tell us a little bit about yourself. But as you'll see, as we review the work, that's really your work, neighborhood leaders, and we, the team, kind of collect it and rationalize it and articulate it in PowerPoint slides. We want more than that this year because we feel that we are working really hard and our vested interest is pretty deep. So again, this is summarizing your thoughts. We want this work we're doing to lead us to something better beyond and not back to the pre-Trump status quo. And we want candidates who inspire us because they have vision and integrity and they're focused on solutions. So not just talking about problems that are needling them, but what they want to do if they are elected to the office that they're running for. And we're going to look actually at ways that we can address Citizens United at this time with this Supreme Court that we have, and think about questions that we want to ask candidates that get at those things. And at our last Zoom, that was something that really came up for you all. And then finally, we have unique access to candidates. Each one of us brings at least about 50 voters. And so if there are 40 of us on this Zoom, we've got, a couple thousand voters here with us. And so candidates know that and pay attention to us and really listen to our questions. And the final thing is that primaries are a time of possibility. General election for all but city candidates, because that's where city candidates just enter into the election. But for all those other offices, that's the time when we've selected our candidates in the primary, and now it's time to elect them. But primaries are a time we say you vote with your heart in a primary and you work with your heart in a primary, if that makes sense. So again, this is a summary of what everyone, neighborhood leaders said, the country we want, broad engagement in civic life, a true safety net, harnessing our positivity as a nation of many and diverse origins, and encouraging that constantly renewed energy, and redefining patriotism to include championing those things. And I think we had a quote earlier that said the same thing. And then we agreed that we need to elect leaders who aren't afraid to do fundamental remodeling of all the things that got us to where we are now and need to be changed. And that our role is working to help our candidates be their best selves and do the right thing, if that makes sense. Mark, it's the electability.
Sorry, I was just fixing a little mistake here. The power is ours to exercise. Electability is a pundit-created myth. Neither elite pundits, donors, nor elector, nor political operatives, really know who is electable. On paper, few in those categories thought Donald Trump, Zohran Mamdani, or Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez were electable. The candidates proved otherwise. By the same token, safe candidates, especially lifelong professional politicians, lose when they prove unable to galvanize voters, such as Terry McAuliffe in 2021 in Virginia governor's race, Senator Bob Casey in 2024. A disciplined, articulate politician who can authentically connect with people on issues they care about deeply will get elected. The voters decide electability.
Yeah, and that's us and the people we're connected to. So I'm not gonna read through all of these, but these will go out in the slideshow. This is from the Contrarian, and electability, as you see, is lesson number 5, and they're great things to think about. So yeah. And especially we like number 10, the public is the key to saving democracy. So now candidates come to our Zooms, as we said, during election season so that we can better describe them to voters. The questions we ask communicate our priorities. We can let candidates know we want to hear about vision and solutions in the invite and through the questions we ask. So when you're all going to get to ask questions, we'll put some questions that we want all the candidates to address, and we'll look at those in a little bit in our invite. But you're going to be asking questions as well. So this is thinking about matching the scope of the office the candidate is seeking to the question, reflecting our priorities and expectations, and encouraging candidates to be bold. So now, as an example, and actually as something we're proposing to you, we're focusing on money out of politics, which is what we talked about in December. And we have identified, no secret, Citizens United as a major threat to broad civic engagement in truly democratic elections. I think we all know that. So we want to consider questions that will support candidates to commit to taking action appropriate to the office they seek. And we want to think in terms of ethics and campaign reform. And then I just wanted to add, and we talked about this at an earlier Zoom, some of you weren't there. Montana is leading the way in using a state initiative to change rights granted to corporations. And one, just take a minute to remind everybody or tell you, I actually hadn't clued in on this, that in the most part, the federal government has traditionally left it to states to grant or withhold rights from corporations. Ergo, it is up to states to grant or withhold rights that come to campaign finance. And you can Google this and see what's happening. Montana has actually got a bipartisan initiative on the ballot for this year to counteract Citizens United in Montana elections. And any state can do this. So just want to start off with some statistics about just what money is in politics. And Steve, you were going to be someplace in this. I think maybe you were the last slide. Did I do that wrong?
Yeah, maybe. So I reviewed this list of big donors, and it would be no surprise to anyone that the top 7 contributors all spent all of their money in support of Republican candidates and Republican causes. You have to get down to the 8th person, which was Bloomberg, before there was any big money came to the Dems. So yeah, that's the list of donors. Really, the only two, that are easily recognizable are Musk and Bloomberg, and the rest are kind of just rich people, I guess you would have to say. And there's a couple that give money to both parties, but most have picked sides. And I think the bottom bullet there is what Americans say is they dislike that our billionaires are spending a lot of money on elections. We don't think it's healthy. We don't think it's fair. That's the story.
And for those of you who like to know what the methodology was, I'm not going to read this, but I want you to know the methodology for all the breakdown of those 3 bullets is in the slideshow, and you can look at that. We're going to send this to you. So now we're at the part where we're thinking about framing questions. And Caitlin, you have raised your hand.
Yeah, quick question. Those are actual hyperlinks that when we get the slideshow, we can click on?
Yes, I was thinking about that. And if it's not possible for that, I'll be sure to put it in the email.
Okay. Or I can email you for the ones I have
No,
questions on.
no. I mean, I think that's fine. No worries.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So thinking about framing questions about money out of politics. And now we're going to show you some questions we came up with and ask you, what do you think? So, and these are what we could send to candidates as we invite them to the Zooms. Okay, Pam, Mark, one of you raised your hand.
Um, Hi, Nancy. Before you go into these questions, I had a question about when you said it has been left to states to regulate, or it's possible for states to regulate uh, uh, campaign finance, essentially. But when you
Well,
say
actually, to regulate corporations fully.
regulate corporation.
Corporations take their power and their rights from states.
Okay, that's very interesting. I'm wondering if um, it's just for state um, elections or for federal elections also.
That
That a
is
state has that power.
that is a great question. Um, I will get the answer to that. My brain is exploding a little bit on
Well,
that
I
because
think the test case is like you've mentioned is Montana, and we'll have to see what plays out in Montana because if they pass that initiative, it will be interesting to see how the corporations fight back against that.
yeah, and they will. And it would seem to me that it would cover all of them because it's regulating the corporation's activities within, as an entity organized within the state. So I could be wrong on that. I will check it out. We always say neighborhood leaders, it's always okay to say, I don't know. I'll find the answer. So that's a great question, Pam. So meanwhile, anybody who can multitask has been reading these questions. I'm going to stop sharing in a second and just ask people what you think about these. So the first is what problem are you running to solve and how will you work to solve it as you name the office? And the second is we understand that it takes a lot of money to successfully run for office. Our concern as constituents is the strings that may be attached. When you take contributions from interest groups, what's the understanding as to the access those contributions may buy? And then the third is what strategies do you have for maximizing small individual contributions over large ones from individuals, corporations, or PACs? So, what do people, Caitlin?
So I have to go back and see those, and I have to figure out how to do that. But the third one that I'm looking at,
No, that's okay. The maximizing small donations.
yeah, my concern is not Max. As somebody who's donated, I am frigging poor. I am broke. I don't have money, and I've donated a few $1,000s as seed money to various different candidates this year already. Um, and I don't really care about maximizing donations from the small person. What I care about is maximizing the voice that the people have. So can we switch that wording around a little bit? How are they going to make sure that they hear their individual constituents?
That is a great question, and it just reminds me I have to escape from this and look. And so we had a couple of other questions that I put in the notes because we try to make the slides readable. How will you center your work on the real interests of the people you serve and represent? What do you think?
I like that. I like that better. I would also there was a wonderful ad not too long ago by one of my representative, where she said that she wouldn't listen to liberals. Uh, and I thought, these our elected individuals represent all of us, whether Democrat or Republican. Sorry, I mean I'm a
Yeah.
Democrat, but um, and there's some fantastic new AI tools theoretically out for them to be able to, you know, capture the what people are sending in as well as what the outliers are, because of course, as we know, you know, just riding the wave of what everybody is saying doesn't necessarily lead to good governance. So I don't know how to. I mean, clearly I know how to say that in this, but I haven't encapsulated it for a, for a nice targeted question yet. Um,
Yeah. Anybody, thank you. I mean, good point and thank you. And they might be both good questions. Suzanne.
There we go. Sorry, I don't know how to raise my hand with the little hand. But anyway, the thing is, I don't think it matters where the money comes from so much as what it matters is being very open about what that money bought. And I think that's a fair question to ask a candidate. If you get a large donation from someone, where are you going to put in the public record your record of voting that shows how that money was either ignored, used, or whatever? Because I don't think you're going to get it out. Campaigns cost a fortune, and the little people don't have the billions. And so I think what we need to have is more, and I don't know how to phrase the question, but accountability on how you vote compared to where your contributions come from.
So
So
that
the
was
thing,
what we were trying to get at, saying we know it costs a lot of money. What we're concerned about is your understanding of the access that contributions buy.
but that kind of makes it sound like the candidate understands and goes, yeah, I get it. And he's not telling us what he's going to do about it. I
I
think we
got it.
need to be a
Okay,
little more
great,
pointed,
great,
on that, on the getting an answer.
great. Thank you. That is a good point. Rick.
Yeah, one of the things that we can do is ask candidates whether they would support a constitutional amendment to abolish corporate personhood and establish that money used to influence elections is not free speech. That move to amend version, the People's Amendment, We the People's Amendment, they call it. It's been around for years, and it's been getting lots of support in Congress, like about 100 last Congress. I think, I don't know how many in this Congress. But they're asking that we also ask state and local officials, because that's where federal candidates ultimately come from at some point.
But
So,
it's also, you can ask state candidates, and just to be clear, that would be questions for certain people who would be voting on that. But state candidates, would you support an initiative? Because it can come from the legislature, and we have super majorities in our legislature that they could propose, they could refer a ballot initiative to take away from corporations the ability to do the same thing at the state level.
well, they can only do that with corporations that are incorporated. I mean, theoretically, if they'd even get away with it, it would
But
only be ones incorporated in Oregon.
I get that, but because state representatives aren't voting on the constitutional amendment, we only have 15 minutes with them, doesn't it make more sense to say, would you act at the state level?
Well, yeah, if you have something in mind, I agree. It's an easy question though, and it's not something you have to ask when you only have 15 minutes. Not just something
Yeah,
that you could ask them.
but that's good for federal representatives.
Yeah, well, they're asking to do it for state representatives too, because
Yeah.
you elect state representatives who are good, and then you can elect them to federal office. You can't do that without that.
Okay, Mark.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I don't know much about the We the People initiative, but I do know that one of the reasons the elections are costing so much more all the time is a direct result of Citizens United and these other rules saying that corporations are essentially have as many or more rights in some ways than people. That's the crux of the issue. Because we work really hard with our candidates and try to get them elected, it's really hard to ask them not to take monies that they need to run and win. We need to change the system. Yes, we need to ask those hard questions. Yes, we want people who understand our feelings about that, but we also want them to win so that they can move on and up and change the system.
Yeah, yes. These are great because, and just so everybody knows, the team will take these and sort of mull on how can we, and we knew you'd make our questions better. So thank you for fulfilling our hopes and expectations, Carrie.
Yeah, so thinking about Susanna, your point, which I think everybody's made such great observations and points about this, but yeah, it's not so much don't take the money, but how can we how are you going to demonstrate to us that that money is not swaying your vote over the needs of your constituents? And I'm a big fan, and in some cases, maybe people wouldn't agree because it can seem impolite. But where it's possible, to frame a question that establishes what we are assuming is a shared value, which is that the constituents' interests are what comes first. And so saying something along the lines of, we know it costs money. That's the unfortunate reality is under our current system. So how are you going to demonstrate that to your district, your constituents, that the contributions, that the actions and votes you take are in response to our needs and not to satisfy a donor? I mean, to just say it outright. And right there, you are establishing, or we would be establishing, that that is our value, and we are assuming that they're going to share that value with us. And then it's up, if they want to disagree with that, that's something we really need to know. And if they haven't really thought about how they're going to make that part of their job to be clear to us that it is us they're thinking of and not the $30,000 from, somebody or other. Then that's something we are helping them think about and put an action plan together for.
So two parts, and Joanna, I'll give the floor to you in one sec. Two parts that I'm hearing is one, what Carrie is talking about, and then two, what Rick was bringing up and talking about Montana, and what actions would you take also to directly address this legislatively? Okay, Joanna.
I just wanted to go back. Actually, I have two things, but I wanted to go back to the small dollar donations. To me, having a lot of small dollar donations from individuals in the community indicates the connection of the candidate to the community and their willingness to do the work and contact their constituents. And it shows also the faith of the constituents in them. I think AOC is an example of this in the number of doors knocked. I think Zoran Mamdani is similar in that way as well. I think that you can raise a lot of money without relying on corporate PACs, which brings me to my second, I guess it's a point of clarification. I think the term that was used in one of the questions was interest groups. And I think it's important to define what that is. I'm perfectly comfortable asking someone that wants my vote to not accept donations from Big Pharma. I'm fine with that. I'm comfortable with that. I don't want them accepting donations from Amazon. However, an interest group could also be someone like Planned Parenthood, who's invested in, that candidate because they are pro-choice. And so they give them a donation of $2,000 or, a pro-environment PAC or something like that. So I think that that would be another way to look at this is there's other sources of money that are values aligned that are larger than perhaps what the individual can give. And I think it's important maybe to make that distinction. I think we should draw some lines in the sand, my opinion, about who we are okay with our candidates accepting money from. And I think that's okay. They're not going to go broke. There's other sources and there's hard work that they can put it. That's that's my comment.
And I'm going to say, I think that could be a multi-day conversation that, we all might have different opinions, but that maybe the way we want to express that to candidates is that we as a group have these sort of overarching questions and know that as individuals, we also have individual lines that may vary from individual to individual. And let's, it's what Carrie said about values and our assumptions. Let's be clear. We have a county platform in Lynn County. I can't remember if you do in Benton, but we have, we have values and we're clear on our values. We've shared some of them in one of those slides, and we know who of donors aligns with them or not, right? So even without naming them all. Okay, Sarah.
I like what a lot of people are saying in these questions, and then I just stuck it in the chat too. maybe a more diplomatic way of asking the questions. Although in some ways, I think right now we need to stop being too worried about being diplomatic. It's my own personal opinion at the moment. But asking someone, what's your process for prioritizing the needs of your constituents over the implied expectations from large donors? Because that's actually what's happening here at the state level. It's just the utilities run the state. And it's just kind of like, but it's never talked about because we still haven't had our campaign finance implemented yet. But that was just an idea. But
No, but and it's good. And our power is to say, you know what? We care a lot about this.
yeah,
And
I totally
and,
agree.
and we see the mess that we're in now as a
Hmm.
direct result of the way campaigns have
Hmm.
been
Yeah,
financed.
yeah.
And the other thing is just watching the, pay to play that's, going on camera in, the Oval Office. Yeah, enough said. Susan.
I think something that could be asked of candidates, probably from the local level all the way up to national, is their feeling about the roles of individual constituents within how they will govern, like the accountability to their individual constituents,
Yeah.
as well as the hierarchy of how campaigns are run, where I mean, I think that the Neighborhood Leader Program is so awesome and it's demonstrated that it works. And people are putting tons of hours into doing these things, volunteering. I don't see that a lot of candidates, particularly higher up the hierarchy you go, appreciate that type of involvement from their own constituents. And I think they say they do, and I think, they're good about coming on and talking with um, constituents, voters, neighborhood leaders, whoever the volunteers might be, during the campaign season when they're looking for volunteer support. And then they kind of disappear from our whole radar. Um, if they're elected, we don't. They might come to a town hall or something like that, but we don't get the opportunity for holding them accountable. Like we don't have that within the hierarchy. The donors do. The donors can get a hold of them at any time and say what they want and all. We get to ask for or beg for or whatever a 15-minute meeting or get in a lottery at a town hall to see if we get to ask our question in front of everyone, which can be pretty intimidating and all, but there's not that connection between people once they get elected and their volunteer base and their so I think it's if candidates can appreciate more the volunteers who put in time that if they had to pay for that time, they could never afford. Things are expensive enough as it is. But that is what's helping them get elected, in addition to whatever fundraising they're doing, is the volunteers on the ground. And we'd like to hear from them during their terms and be able to hold them accountable, at least ask them questions and all. Because when we go to doors, we come across people that ask questions about, well, why aren't they just doing this? Or why aren't they, or why, the national story. And it's like, we don't have any control over the national leadership, but we're the volunteers that face the public and have to answer those accountability questions. So I think that's another major place that if we could ask candidates about that, I
And
think that would be
I
helpful.
love the graphicness of that comparison of an individual having to play the lottery to stand up in front of 300 people and ask a question versus someone you go to lunch with one on one.
Yeah,
And that, we do see that and we do feel that.
yeah. And we run into people who ask us because they're like, you're my connection to the DNC and Chuck Schumer. And it's like, no, No, we are not. So
You know. Whew, okay. I'm going to be thinking about that in the middle of the night. Susan?
I love what you were saying there, Susan Heath. And I was just thinking, maybe this is silly, but I was thinking, let's take the number of neighborhood leaders we have times the number of hours that we kind of expect that people put in, times whatever we think, 20 bucks an hour, and figure out that cost and present that to the people who are coming here to talk to us and say, this is how much we are worth to you.
That I love that. Okay, we're gonna have fun at our next team meeting, I promise. Joanna, and then I think we're gonna wrap this up if you all are okay. And we do have some time to talk about the launch and would love to engage you in what you'd like to do in February. Joanna.
One last thing then. I think it's important to think about how we want candidates to answer these questions. What is the answer we're looking for, especially for the last two? I can't remember the wording exactly. If we're okay with them taking large sums of money from whatever, what is the answer we're looking for and how they're going to accept that money without strings attached? Is it their word? What kind of, I'm curious about that.
Well, here's the thing. In you either build a trust relationship or you don't. But I think it's possible to also communicate to candidates. I had a conversation today with somebody who works in candidate campaign, and I said, from our point of view here in Oregon, we work so hard to elect people, and then they go inside the Beltway, and they're just sucked into that world of influence and strategy, right? And I have a certain meaning to strategy. I'm not going to bore you by I think you can all imagine what I mean. And that's very hard for us. And I think that's what you're talking about too. So we'll think of a way to, how can we communicate? Okay. Thank you all. And we'll save the chat. And if you don't know how to save the chat, say so in the chat, and then somebody will type in how you can save it so that you can have those thoughts too. Okay. So, Caitlin.
Me again. I talk a lot. Um, so we have 15 minutes with each of the candidates. Am I right? So we're gonna have to we have 40 people on these calls. We're gonna have to be very targeted about what questions we ask and who gets to ask questions.
Yes, but what we do is two things. First, we send them an invitation. And so a lot of what we're listening for is to communicate that in the invitation and explain that, there's a short time and, we're going to have this focus. The other thing is that every candidate we've had gives us contact information and says, please, let me know, blah, blah, blah. And we're going to urge you all to take advantage of that. And then frequently candidates will stay on the Zoom for questions in the chat. So, this is an opportunity to communicate, and then there are more opportunities. And there's never enough time in life for, probably.
And I'd like to point out that some of these candidates are very busy and very far away, but some of them are local candidates and you can get to know them and work on their campaign. You can ask questions of them whenever.
Okay, Cynthia, I love that. The 30, I remember that volunteer time. I used to run grant programs and there is an actual dollar amount. So thank you. Thank you. Sort of brings back nightmares, but it's also great information. Okay. The launch. So the launch, we have 2 hours together. We're working on getting a cool keynote speaker, and we won't say who we're working on because we'll be too disappointed if we don't get this person. But, that's one thing we do. We try to start out with some sort of icebreaker so that people can talk to each other. And the format is people sitting at tables with each other and talking to each other part of the time. So it's not like talking heads talking at you. It's much more interactive. And it's a chance for people to, okay, Mark, stop distracting me. It's a chance for people to really get to talk to other neighborhood leaders and have conversations. So, those of you who've been to past launches, or those of you who can think about big events, what do you think? What would you like to see? All right, Casey, icebreaker. We got it. And if anybody has like, oh, I have the best icebreaker, feel free to tell us to contact you and we'll do that. Okay, anything else? Okay, someone
Cider.
hand up.
Joanna says
Yeah.
cider.
Suzanne.
I was just going to say, when I've been to these things, usually what happens is you get one table and they're all very chatty and they sit there all night. If there'd be something sort of like speed dating, where you'd, after a certain amount of time, have people change places or something, just so people talk to different people and they don't kind of get in their little cliquey group and not budge out of it. Because as a new person, I'm not going to know anybody. So whoever I sit down first, I might be tempted to cling to because I know them at that point. So just a suggestion, perhaps a little bit of shifting somewhere in the course of the evening.
That is great. And it's 3 to 5:30, so it's afternoon. We'll have more energy.
Some people. I do better in the morning.
Okay, other suggestions? Somebody, okay. Oh, look, Caitlin.
Me again. Yeah, big surprise. I like activities. I get really tired of sitting around twiddling my thumbs. So I would say, things I've been thinking about lately is things like making the signs, making the little painted rocks, things that we can do that are, to, activities that we're actually doing with our hands, and we can talk about, what it is that we're doing. So I don't know.
Okay, we'll think about that. I don't know that we can have, painting going on or large pieces of paper. I don't know that we have enough space, but we'll think of something. We can come up with something. I know we have at least 2 people in our team who are really good at that. Yeah. Okay.
And if
Sounds
everybody brings somebody else along, we're going to run out of space. That's a
That
good problem.
that is a great problem. That will be a fabulous problem to have. Okay. And there will be food involved, not a full meal, but Brenda's in charge, and there's always good food when Brenda's in charge. Okay, and that's in Lynn County. I don't know about Benton County. You're on your own. Carrie, you can talk about food there. If Carrie's into, I'm not going to say it.
Food, yeah.
Say
Food.
good
Yeah.
stuff, but never mind.
We'll we'll find some food.
Okay.
Fortunately, there are really good people in Benton County who are good at this sort of thing, so it's not all in my hands, or else, be a bag of chips. So it'll be better than that.
Okay. Um, okay, anything else? Jenny.
When I did square dancing, back to that one lady's suggestion, we had a call that was called Stir the Pot. And that meant you had to move to the next square and dance with somebody different. So I don't know, you could work out some version of that to, because I think that's a great idea, because you do kind of get stuck in a spot.
Okay, I'm just gonna ask, I wanted to do that. I seem to remember it the last time, but people were like, oh, and people don't want to like all their stuff and, blah, blah, blah. So just a show of hands, if we end up asking people to change tables, who would just hate that? Oh, is that a bad way to ask it? I should, because then you have to, it's fine. Okay, who would think that'd be okay to do? All right. Okay, good. Okay. We'll only do it 3 or 4 times in the 2 hours. Okay. Anything else? Joanna, did you have your hand up? It's hard. There are all of these.
I'm sorry, I was showing support for the limited frequency table changing.
Okay. Okay. Um, okay, so thank you. Thank you for that. And real quickly, we are going back to slides just to look at ba-bum, ba-bum, good of the order and what we have. Oh yeah, also, we have this little if you want, and there's the link, Robert Reich, not quite 5 minutes, where the hell are our leaders? That is really apropos of what we've been talking about. So you get that in the slideshow. We planned for the launch. Okay, so this is NAACP and Lynn Benton Institutional Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion joint program that is going to be that's at LB, right? Yes. On Thursday, noontime, middle of the day. If other people have MLK Day events that they know about, can you drop them in the chat and I can put them in the slideshow before I send this out maybe tomorrow? Okay. And then for people who want to do Ice Watch or human rights or observer training, the 7th of January has passed, but these are the times and dates, and it's all at the Reynolds Law Firm on 5th Street in Corvallis for the next 3 months. So this too will go out.
Can I say something more about that, Nancy?
Ah,
Um, I have attended one of these trainings. It's fabulous. It's very, very worthwhile. The trainers have said that if we can find a date that works for them and a venue and get about 50 people to commit to attending, they will do a training specifically for whatever group we organize. So we've been talking about trying to get something happening in Albany because I know for some people it's difficult, including myself, to drive all the way to Corvallis in the after dark. So I'm just wondering, first of all, how many people here have taken one of the Ice Watcher Human Rights Know Your Rights trainings? Hands up.
oh,
And
great group.
yeah, that's great. And if we did one, if we were able to organize one in Albany and presuming the date worked for you, how many of you would be interested in attending that? A few people. Okay, if we can get that set up, we'll send it out as an email. All right? Thank you.
And I think I know we have a venue that would be very happy to have us. And then the Honkin' Waves, and I don't know about Honkin' Waves in Benton County, but I do know that going to this link will show you all local events. You just put in the zip code. Val Hoyle, I assuming, is still having her field staff office hours.
As far as I know, I haven't confirmed it, but I believe so.
Okay, and then I saw the thank you is like apparently from October, so I'm not going to the thank you. I'm going to stop sharing and say that the next thing we're doing is the launch in February. Susan, you want?
Senator Merkley is doing a town hall on January 18, which is a Sunday. It's at Lynn Benton Community College, the Albany campus. I believe it starts at 5:30, but I'm sure you'll be seeing some information about it soon.
I thought I read 5 or 5:30.
We're supposed to be there at 5. I think maybe the town hall starts at 5:30, but I'm not sure.
Will you send me that, Susan? I'll put it in a slide.
Will do.
Okay.
Nancy?
Yeah.
Now that you say that, Susan, I could almost swear I saw a mention of him doing a town hall in Philomath around that same time, so I'll try to run that down.
Yeah, he usually hits both.
Yeah, I'll see what I can find out. I'm pretty sure I saw something. So stay tuned, everybody. We'll send that out if in our follow-up.
Okay. I think that's it for me. Anybody else? Any last good of the order? Unmute yourself and speak. Okay. As always, we end by saying we will prevail. We will prevail, and we know that the secret is if we keep going, we will prevail. And something that's become clear to me this last weekend, when at almost every moment there was a vigil or protest or banner drop that you could participate in, is that all the heart is on our side. Really, all the heart and all the vision and all the hope. And, when you have those days where you have to step back, it's okay, because you'll step forward on another day when somebody else needs to take a break. So be good to yourselves. Think of people to bring to the launch, and we will see you next in February.